definitely one thing I should have showed you is that you can hook up a wet dry vacuum or a vacuum with a dust collection system and just pull with your vacuum. It's got different settings for different vacuums so that you can absorb much more of the dust into the deal and not have.
Welcome back to Kung Fu Maintenance, where I show you how to make the most likely repairs you'll need to make in your lifetime. If you'd like to get the latest videos, subscribe and then hit the little bell icon right at the subscribe button and it'll notify you of any new videos when they're released for you.
Okay, got some damage on this tabletop. I'm going to sand it down, repaint it. But what I've got is a quarter cable sander. It's got a dust collection system, which is pretty cool, so it helps absorb the dust, but you probably want to do this outside somewhere where it's not going to dust on all your stuff, because it does have a dust collection system, but that doesn't mean it's not going to still put out more dust elsewhere. This is a quarter sheet sander. You get different types of sanders that have, some of them might be a third sheet or a half sheet, or it just depends on what you've got, or some of them just have their own random sheets. Typical sheet, this one's kind of, this is a fine grit. You may want something with more grit to it. This is just something that I found, so I'm just kind of using what I have. This is pretty strong, but a quarter sheet is exactly what it implies. It's folded in half, and then in half once again to get your 1/4 sheet, and then you can cut it or tear it into the quarter sheet. So the quarter sheet folds over this particular deal. What you've got is this release mechanism. So you pull this up like that, and that releases the clamp that holds down. You can see as I move this, that holds down the paper underneath. So release the opposite side as well, and the same thing. It releases the clamp that holds down the paper. So you just slides out from here. Which this has not been used in a while, so I'm just going to tear it off and get it going. But see here, okay. So you take a quarter sheet. This is definitely not folded that well or cut that well, but if we get a pair of scissors, it might be better. And we just make our crease marks to get the quarter sheet. Now when you first start out, you want to kind of go from a lower grit to a higher grit. A higher grit has a much smoother finish, and a lower grit will remove material faster. So you want to start from your lower grit, remove your material, and then lower your pad to a finer grit, so to get rid of the scratches, so you get a finer finish. And that's more critical depending on what type of finish you're going to be going with. If you're painting it, obviously you don't need a lower grit. You can just, you don't need a higher grit or a finer grit. You just need you just want to get the job done and get the old stuff sanded off. So this one I'm cutting into quarter sheets. If you didn't have a pair of scissors handy, you could keep folding it in half and work hard in it and then do it that way, but might as well cut all 4 of these sheets, and then I'll have something ready in the future for whatever I need. So there's 4 sheets. From this one, again, this is 100 grit, so it's a much rougher surface, so it would sand much faster than this 300 grit. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the remainder sheet just by using my quarter sheet to kind of size it up, and cut this silly thing over to make the same size sheet. So my initial sheet, I'm going to use this sheet since it's 100 grit. It'll sand a lot faster. Once I get it sanded down, I'll follow it up with this 320 grit, which is pretty fine, and work out the scratches. This will leave deeper scratches or remove material much faster. So unless you want to be there forever, you might want to start with something a little stronger like this. So what we do is we insert our sheet under the clamp, and once it's under the clamp, I'll turn it this way so you can see it. It's under the clamp. We're going to use the clamp to pull down, and it's going to grip the sheet, and then we're going to tuck this behind the holder here. Hopefully that came through on the camera. And then we're going to fold this over. We're going to take our paper, we're going to wrap it around, and we're going to hope we have enough room to tuck it under the other clamp. If not, I may need to adjust the initial one a little bit to pull it back a little bit to give us a little more room so that we clamp the paper, but we've got enough room to clamp the opposite side. So we just want to make sure we're clamped across the entire peel. And this is where it may take a bit of adjustment, but you know, I'm going to roll it around and tuck it in on the other side. Now I'm going to loosen this side again. I'm going to leave it tucked under and try to get this side under a little bit. There we go. Got this side under a little bit. Same thing, tucking it under there. So now we've got this side, and again, this wasn't a perfect sheet. It's just what I had left over, so I'm gonna make it work. Try to make it work. Fold it over, and there we go. So that's clamped pretty good. I could slide the paper over a little bit to cover the pad completely. Just kind of adjusting it. I'd rather not have the pad get damaged at all. So balance that out a little. Tuck that on in. Clamp it down. Clamp it down, and we're ready to sand. Okay, so this has a collection cup right here, and you can see how it rotates in. So we're going to turn it to the side like that, and then we can pull it off. I'm going to hold it down this way in case there's any dust in it, which there likely is. And this is how you can empty the collection cup of sand. This one doesn't have, or of sawdust. It doesn't have very much in it, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and put it back on. Insert it and then rotate it so that it's locked in place under the plate. But it's a nice little deal is that it absorbs some of the sawdust. It won't get everything, but it'll help reduce it a little bit. The rest is simply plugging it in and going to work on your material. If you go against the grain of the wood, it'll sand much faster, remove material faster, but it'll leave more scratches. If you go with the grain, it'll remove it a little bit slower, but leave less scratches. So, depending on what you have going, the density of material, how hard it is to sand, the grit of your sandpaper, you may want to use a different procedure on each thing that you're using. It just takes a little bit of trial and error to figure it out. And then you can follow it up with a higher grit sandpaper to get a much smoother finish. And again, it just depends on the level of the detail that you want to get, the effect that you want to get. Okay, so we're ready to sand here. It is a good idea to tarp things off. I'm just going to do it and vacuum up after. Can't really recommend that. Anything you don't want sawdust in, you may want to remove it away from the area. Again, it'll kind of make a mess, so it is what it is. I don't know. You may want to remove some stuff that you just don't want sandpaper going in or on. and a little bit of a judgment call. Again, this will just be vacuuming up later. And you may want to take this outside in the garage, whatever, but you know. And you also may want to wear safety glasses and ear protection, as the thing can be kind of loud and annoying. But you've got your on switch here. It basically just does a high orbit sanding, really, really fast in a small concentric circle. And but it's a good sander for finish sanding because it just oscillates kind of. We'll take a look here. I'll show you. You can see it makes a lot of noise and it rotates in a really tiny concentric circle.
For that reason, you want to keep it moving as you're sanding it down. You don't want to just let it spin in a circle, as it'll leave little marks.
Anyway, it's not an orbital sander. An orbital sander spins in a circle, and that leaves much more scratches. Because this one goes with the grain or against the grain, depending on how you control it, you have better control over the scratches. So here goes. I'll show you a pass with the grain, and then one against the grain, just for science. Okay, so you can see the level of the sanding. This almost has like kind of a scratch straight across. This one, kind of a deal. Didn't really leave the scratch, but it does look kind of odd. So I'm just going to let the weight of the tool sand it. You don't really have to press down on it. If you do press down, you're going to get deeper scratches. If you just let the weight of the tool do it, then you can just kind of take your time with it and sand it off. So if it removes material fast enough, I'll go with the grain. If it doesn't remove material fast enough, then I'll go against the grain and then come back with the grain. Okay, so you can see it's not removing the finish very quickly. It's kind of leaving the finish behind, but it is removing some of the stuff underneath. But I think that we're going to need it to go a little faster. We've got 100 grit, so I'm going to go ahead and go against the grain, and then we'll follow that up after going with the grain to get a smoother finish. Okay, so it's a good idea to go for like an even attempt at the sanding. Eventually we're wanting to get all the finished material off. Excuse me, I got a pretty brutal cough. It may be a good idea to get some type of a cloth or something to wipe it down. You can also hook up a a vacuum with a hose attachment and pull some of the dust off is a good idea. This one I'm only taking off the top of the finish, so you can see I definitely got a ways to go. And using a lower grit sandpaper can actually speed this up even faster. You can see some bits of scratches in the material. Let me turn a light on and bring some more light to this. That'll help. But it's a smooth, even with the 100 grit, is not leaving very many scratches. It's just sanding the material out. But you can see I need to bring it all down to an unfinished wood material. So it's going to take a little while with the 100 grit. It does start to build up some paper in the paper. You can kind of brush it off, and you can eventually switch the paper when it gets too built up. I'm not there yet, but I'm just kind of telling you. But yeah, and then eventually we'll switch to the higher grit sandpaper, but that's not for a while. For now, it's better to use the lower grit to move material faster. Okay, the thing is you want to avoid when doing this, you want to avoid tipping the sander at all. It can be kind of tempting because you're wanting it to remove the material faster, but really the way to remove material faster is to use a lower grade. You can even use a 60 to start off, and that would definitely remove material a lot faster. 100 grit is still a fairly, it's not as fine as a 320 grit, but it's not really moving material necessarily as fast as we'd like to, but it will work. It's just going to take a little bit more time. Again, it's better to let the weight of the tool kind of do the most of the work. That way you don't dig in like ditches in any area. What you're wanting is a nice smooth finish when it's finished, and so by not you know, by kind of letting the weight of the tool do it, you can better control it. You can push down a little bit, but you're just wanting to keep things even, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. Okay, this I'm just on the top. You can see we're getting there. It's getting a little built up. I'll just kind of brush it off. A vacuum cleaner with a hose attachment's a good idea, as that can help, you know, vacuum up the dust. It definitely does make a mess all around. So this one I'm definitely avoiding tipping it on the corners because I don't want to change the shape. We want a nice flat edge around the corners. So it's more, even more critical around the corners, not to push down too much. But yeah, a little more ways to go. It's getting there. It's getting a nice smooth finish. The 100 grit isn't leaving very many scratches in the top, but again, I'll follow it up with a finer grit, and that'll make it even nice and smooth to where when you touch it, it just has a really soft feel to it. And it's just kind of nice. Okay, you can really start to see the character of the wood shine through. It's very soft. Very nice. Got just a little more material to take off. And we'll get there. Got the edges nice and smooth. No scratches or dips or anything. And working it out. At this point, kind of tapping out the buildup of the sawdust. That'll make it sand a little bit faster. So we remove some of that buildup and make it happen. We got a nice smooth finish. Again, this was with 100 grit. If we used like a 60 grit, that would have been much, much faster, but it would leave deeper scratches and whatnot. So it just depends on the finish that you're looking for. This one, I'll probably switch it up now to the 320 grit, and that'll really make it really soft and really smooth and take out any little imperfections. This one is not critical, it's just a little bureau deal, so, but still, you know, I like it to come out a little nicer, so we'll switch up to the grit. And I'll give you another chance to go over that with you, showing you switching the paper. So here's how we switch out our sandpaper. It's a good idea for safety to unplug it. We just remove the clip, and that releases the clamp on both sides. Same, releases the clamp, and we can slip out our deal. And then we tuck this one in and under the clamp. That's enough to get the entire sheet of the paper across. Okay. This one we're going to fold around, and we'll tuck in under the opposite end. tuck that in under the clamp bar. She's being a bit stubborn, that's how it is. Okay, now we're in and under. All the way across, and we'll tuck it in, clamp it down, and I'll switch it back and give this side a little bit more room. Just want to make sure we can get underneath both sides, so now we want a bit of material to clamp onto, so there we go. Got it good and even. Check in our pad, no spot of the pad is exposed, so now this is going to be a much finer sand. So we're much slower, but we're going to want to go with the grain now. Keep it nice and with the grain. It does its deal. Here we go. Oh yeah, you have to plug it back in. I guess I should have tried to give you a bit of a side shot to see if you can pick up any scratches in the film. I don't see very many scratches from my angle. I don't have a ton of light here, but this will just kind of give a before and after with the lower grit sandpaper. But already, even with the one pass, it's way smooth. It's just like really, really smooth and nice. Okay, it's going good here. Now you might have noticed the difference here in this section. Wow, it's smooth. But what you've got is two different pieces of wood, or actually four different pieces of wood that they've joined together. So you can see very faintly the line here, the line here, the line here. So it's actually four different pieces of wood that were used for this particular piece of furniture. But we're getting nice and smooth, and we're almost ready for our refinish. Okay, I think that's about it. We've got a nice smooth finish. We'll just clean it all off. We're ready for our refinish. It's up to you how deep you want to go and the details that you want to go through. Obviously sanding other edges is going to be a little bit more difficult. This one I'm just refinishing the top, so it's kind of a very easy job. And definitely have your choices of finishes. I'm going to be going with matching the finish, but you know, you could do whatever you want. You can get kind of creative and do a different finish if you wanted a darker finish on top or whatever. It just gives the options. But now it's nice and sanded. Everything's worked out. I don't see any scratches in the top. I don't feel any ditches in the top or anything. So it's going to make a nice, easy deal. Okay, definitely not the best idea to do inside. You can see it just has settled on everything. You know, wipe down all the sawdust off the top, which I did already, but I should have done it on camera. But I've got a few little nicks and stuff in the front. Again, I'm not too worried about this. I'm just kind of making it a little bit better. Could have sanded all that down by hand, taken the time with it and done it. But I'm just going to kind of go over it. What I have is a gel stain, so I'll kind of make it go over this as well. And clean that as well. And I'm just going to, it's such a small area, I'm just going to be applying this one with a paper towel. Normally you'd use a cloth, or I usually like to use a paintbrush, but I only have one paintbrush left and I need it for something else, so I'm just going to use the cloth to get it done. Okay, now that we've sanded everything, you're going to want to empty the collection cup. You can see where this mark is. I'm going to tip it towards the collection side. Go ahead and take it off. I'll see how much dust in there. Definitely one thing I should have showed you is that you can hook up a wet dry vacuum or a vacuum with a dust collection system and just pull with your vacuum. It's got different settings for different vacuums so that you can absorb much more of the dust into the deal and not have so much dust go on everything. So I should have hooked it up to a vacuum, pulled it through the Dyson, and that would have been really nice, as I wouldn't have had so much dust settle on everything. A quick search on my YouTube channel of whatever your maintenance needs are. You should find a bunch of different material that'll be helpful to your maintenance needs.
Lord's my shepherd, I shall not go without. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul.